Dima, I'm sure he's doing something with the media. He's looking at it right now. For Brian, who's introduced, made the introduction. I want to thank the center for being here and to recognize that all of us that are here right now are making the center. And this community that comes here, we make the center. The center is not something that happens sort of on its own. This is really our home, and we pay for it, we clean it, we take care of it. No one is supporting it, we're supporting it. So it's nice, it's a nice feeling when we're here together. Cell phones, if you haven't turned them off. In particular today, I want to thank my teacher, Venerable Sumati Marut, without whom I would have absolutely nothing to say to you. Hopefully I personally will say nothing to you today, and he can speak as much as possible. I'll do my best to clear that space. I also want to thank my teacher, David Hurwith, who has done an extraordinary amount, as usual, to help me with this teaching, to help me prepare for this. And I want to thank all of you for coming, because without you, I wouldn't have the opportunity to study all of this more deeply. And it's very meaningful for me in my life to be able to prepare a day like today. It brings me a lot of joy. I was, when I woke up this morning, the whole morning, I was like jumping on the bed before we left, and I was so excited. And it, like, literally as I'm speaking, it just dawned on me that I was so excited because I got to come here today and talk about the guide. So it's great. I see that some of you, this is your first time. So just to say, you've arrived at the perfect time. And even if you've come to the other workshops, you've arrived at the perfect time, because this that we're going to talk about today, the archetype, the reality, the relationship of the guide, of being in contact with a spiritual mentor, a spiritual guide, a teacher, we can use all types of terms. This is the root. It is called the root of the path. So without this, nothing else. And every one of us in this room has a guide already. We may not have recognized that, or we may have, but we are all in contact with a guide, and we'll explore as we go through the day, again, just beginning the many ways that we relate to a guide. This practice, this is the root. In some ways, you could say it is a practice within the practice of a spiritual life. You can also say it is the practice. So there is the practice of working with a guide, and everything else that you do is what the guide leads you to. So the guide is like a long drop-down menu, an eternal drop-down menu of then all the various things that you might do, meditations, practices, so on and so forth. So sometimes we mistake and we think, I come to a teacher and I get the method, and then I practice the method. But the teacher is the method. The very relating to the teacher is the entirety of the method, okay? So it's not like you go to the teacher and get the thing and then go off and do the thing. It is the relationship with the guide, again, in all the ways that the guide will come, and we'll talk about that. So when we're talking about the path to our awakening, our relationship to the guide will define the path for us. For instance, the reason why I'm up here sharing this particular teaching with you is because my teacher is a Buddhist monk. Not because I was personally interested in Buddhism, but I met my teacher, and then I ended up studying Buddhism because that was his teaching. I've also learned Hinduism from him. I've also learned Christianity from him, right? And I've learned many other things from the way my guide has appeared in many other paths of my life, artistic practices and so on and so forth, okay? So I could say my path has been defined by my guide / guides, the way that one guide has appeared in many ways, okay? I feel that this is the best thing, the most meaningful thing that I have learned in my entire life, hands down, is how to think about and how to treat a teacher. Hands down. That is the most meaningful thing I have that I could try to share with you. So again, I'm really happy, everyone that was able to come today and to be able to talk about this. This particular practice has made my life so sweet and so joyous to be able to work with this practice. So I hope to be able to share a little bit of it with you. So there will be 4 parts to this class. Of course, when we talk about a guide, it implies what? That there's someone who's being guided, right? So if we talk about a teacher, it implies that there's a student, right? So to recognize straight off that that is an interdependent relationship. It is not that there is some person lost or some person needing some help out there on their own, and then there's some teacher, and somehow they like smack into each other. The student and the teacher come interdependently, okay? They rise interdependently. There is no teacher without a student and no student without a teacher. So there is no power struggle there. There is no higher and lower, okay? In the same way, they are not peers. So we're not talking about a peer relationship, but we're also not talking about some person who self-existently has some knowledge over someone else. It's a relationship that comes together, all right? So we'll talk a little bit about the student, but I spent a huge portion of the first workshop going over the qualities of a student. So if you weren't here for that and you're interested, by the end of the day, you might want to go back and listen to the audio of that. But we'll spend a little bit of time in the beginning here looking at that. So there's the student or the person being guided. And then, of course, there's the guide, which we'll talk about today. And then under the guide, as I said, there's 4 parts. There's 2 parts to the practice, which I've already spoken about. There's how you think about your guide and how you treat your guide, which pretty much covers the entirety of our world, how we think and how we act, our mental plane and our physical plane, okay? So those are the 4 parts that we'll be going over. And when we say the guide, we may start with one being, with one particular person, but the end of this practice is that when you are working with a guide, you are eventually training yourself to be able to work with all beings in the same way. So when we say how you think or treat the guide, we're ultimately saying how you think about and how you treat every living being, okay? So this is not an exclusive practice, you and one other person or something like that. This is you and the entire universe, how you relate, how you treat the world, and therefore how the world will treat you, okay? So it's very wide-reaching. The model for how you think about and how you treat your teacher will be the model for how you think about and treat all other living beings. And because it is interdependent, the way you think about and treat all living beings are the way all living beings will think about and treat you. You will then see them treating you that way, okay? So, starting with a little bit around our role, and all of our roles is to be the student or the guide. This is one thing sometimes we say in our tradition, well, you become the teacher. And that's true. But the teacher may be one of the most exquisite realizations is that the teacher is a servant of all beings. The teacher is the student of all beings. So it's, again, they're interdependent. So if you say, I'm going to become the teacher, what does that mean? You become the student. And it's this beautiful dance back and forth, okay? The 3 qualities of a student, I'm going to say them quickly just to drop them in your mind, but again, I'm not going to speak about them in depth, is that we are open, non-judgmental, not like, I don't like the way she wears her hair, I don't want to listen to her. You know, or I'm not interested in this, I'm not interested in that. We have all these ideas, that we try to hold some open heart, okay? So we're open, we have a vision for ourselves, a vision which has some deep compassion in it, in the sense that everyone came here for a reason, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be here. So something in you drew you here, you should honor that. that you have a vision for yourself. It may not be fully articulated yet. It might even be just some strange sense. You may not even know. I remember I had one student earlier when the center opened, and in the middle of the class, he raised his hand. He went, "I don't even know how I got here." And I said, "Did you drive here?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't even know where this center was." And, and he had some bizarre experience where he got in the car and he showed up at the Mahasuka Center. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you find yourself somewhere, and even though you could say, well, I got in the car or I looked online, or maybe you could track it in a conventional way, but the sense is like, how did I get here? What am I doing here? And I've had that feeling many, many times with my teacher. Even though I know I made the decision to come to class, but the feeling is so electric or so sort of other than my status quo day that I kind of go, what's happening, right? So to recognize that even if you have that sense, you have a vision working in you, and your vision is probably more intelligent than your plans, your internal vision, right? So somehow your internal vision got you here today. So to trust that. And then discernment is the other quality of the students. So open, with a vision, and a discernment, which means that you're able to, based upon the vision where you're going, you have a strong sense of what actions would be positive for you to take and what actions would not be positive for you to take in relationship to your vision that you have for yourself. That's different than judgment. Judgment separates and says, this is bad, this is good. Discernment says, with my eye of where I'm going, this is what would be meaningful for me right now. And another time, something else might be meaningful for me, but right now, this is what I should be doing, and to be able to trust that, okay? So to help us open our hearts and sort of soften the space for what we'll talk about today, I'd love to sing for a little bit, which we haven't done in our other workshops. And I've asked Caitlin, who is an amazing singer, to lead us in some song, because I am not an amazing singer. So I didn't want to harm any of you before the beginning, before we got too far in. So Caitlin's going to lead us in a song, and we're going to sing a traditional Sanskrit chant. It's very simple. So I'll just say the words for you while Caitlin's setting up. So you can repeat after me. Hare Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Hare Om. That's it. Okay? So after the first repetition, you're going to remember it, right? And then you won't be able to get out of your head, probably. So what Hare Om, Shiva Om, Hare Om means, and again, the mantra itself has its own power, but the sensibility, oh, yay, two CalArts graduates. The vibrational impulse of this mantra is, may I be able to recognize the light that is in you is as the same as the light as is in me. And may that recognition of this unity destroy any boundaries between us, any walls or any separation that I put up, okay? So by the end of this song, may we be able to feel the light that can exchange between us and know that there are no boundaries here, okay? But mostly you can just enjoy the singing and just relax. If you don't feel like singing, don't sing. If you feel like singing, sing out. This has nothing to do with how well you sing. We're all in it together. This is just about opening our voice and letting the space be filled with our song. And please, everyone who's listening online, please sing out in your own home. Make the neighbors go, what's going on in there? What are they doing? All right. Thank you, ladies.
So I will be calling, just a reminder, this one will be called and spot, so I'll sing the first part and then you can go for it. Hare Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om,
Hare Om Shiva Om Shiva Om Hare Om
Hare Om Shiva Om Hare Om
Shiva Om Shiva Om Hare Om
Hare Om Shiva Shiva Hare Om
Hare Om Shiva Shiva Hare Om
Hare
Om Shiva Om Hare Om Shiva Om Shiva Om Hare Om Hare Om Shiva Om Shiva Om Hare Om
Thank you. Heather, can we pass out the packets? Where are you? Oh, there you are. So Heather's going to pass out the packets. I would ask you not to open them yet, but you'll use them in just a moment. And please get yourself comfortable. We're going to do a short meditation. However you sit is just fine as long as you're comfortable. And you'll want your packet and a pen next to you for when we come out.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay, good. So it's nice if you're sitting in a chair to have your feet grounded. You don't have to, but it's helpful to feel the floor in some way. But mostly what's most important is that you can let go of thinking about your body. So take a moment, do whatever fiddling you need to do, and then please close your eyes and find a space of rest. We'll only be here for about 5 minutes. Everyone can hold themselves relatively still for that time. So as you settle into your silence and your stillness, you might feel like silt settling at the bottom of a river, or a rock falling down deep, deep, deep into the ocean. Feeling that plumb line through your being. Sensing the possibility of all the pores in your body opening, becoming increasingly sensitive. The muscles of your face softening, letting go of the facial mask, the self that we hold on to. Feeling your heart continuing to soften and open. Knowing that you're in a safe space with friends, other beings who've all come here for similar reasons as you. And then for about 1 minute, we'll just ask you to take all your attention to the rising and falling of your abdomen as you breathe. If it helps, you might say rising as the abdomen is rising, and falling as the abdomen is falling to yourself quietly, silently. And just standing as witness to that process, tracking it rising and falling. And then I would ask you to sense yourself, feel the sense of solidity that you have being here. Or maybe there's a sense of fluidity, however you're feeling is just perfect, but sense yourself. Become aware, vibrantly aware. And sensing that this self that you're aware of is multidimensional. There are many aspects, many selves that we play through our lives. And letting yourself open up to both the external and the internal selves. So the external roles we play might be mother, sister, whatever your job is, the work that you do, friend. Internal selves might be believer, judger, person who gets up too late in the morning, person who always remembers their friends' birthdays. All of these ideas, positive and what we might label as negative about ourselves. See how many of those layers you can bring into awareness. All these internal perspectives that we have on ourselves, and then we act out in the world. And the ones that we keep very, very hidden from others, but that we turn over in our minds and in our hearts late at night or early in the morning when it's quiet. Dreamer. The self that has a past, the self that has a future, the self that has a present, the self that needs a haircut, the self that wants to love all beings, the self that can't love itself, and feel all these selves not as some idea in your mind, but as the actual being that you are sitting here in your body, a self that has a body. And then without opening your eyes yet, when we open our eyes, I'll ask you to open your packet. And in your packet, there will be a gray envelope. Please open that envelope, and inside there will be a card. And I would like you to take some time And on that card, I would like you to make a collage of all your different selves. You can do that in any way that's meaningful for you, through words, through images, through just marks on the paper. But trying to place down all of these different layers that have just been unearthed for you, and maybe all the ones that will come as you're doing it. Making a portrait of all that you know, all that is known, a collaged portrait of all that makes up your known self. So when you're ready, taking your time in the transition, please, no rushing. You can find your way to your packet, to your card, and to your work. And those of you that are online, please take a fresh piece of paper and do your portrait on a piece of paper that's outside of your notebook or separate from your notebook. You could tear it out of your notebook. If you'd prefer to move somewhere else in the room to do this, please do. Oh, do you have them? Sure. Yeah, the gray one. If you feel the need for some other pencil or crayons or marker, there are some options up here. take about another 3 minutes here. So in this last minute or two, do what you need to do to feel like you, of course we could go on and on and on, but for this moment, find a way to resolve it in a way that feels full for you within the time we have, the next 2 minutes, and put it back in the envelope, seal the envelope, and if you wish to write something on the envelope that's meaningful for you, then do that. You could write your name, of course, sort of Uber label that we have for ourselves, but yeah, you don't have to, but I recommend sealing it. And you can keep it out. You're not done with it yet. And just give people another moment to finish up. If you're done, you might close your eyes and just let that sort of continue to settle in you, the sensation of what you've written down. Let it harvest and keep going. Or you might keep writing on your envelope if that's meaningful. So it looks like most people are about ready. So, so now what I'm going to ask you to do, you'll find some matches in your packet. And We'll take no more than 5 minutes, and I would just ask you to silently go outside somewhere, probably not in the grass, probably somewhere in the street or on the sidewalk, and burn it. And notice what happens for you as you're doing this. And same thing for the folks online. You can grab some matches and go somewhere that's is safe and let it burn. So Jed, we'll do the images next, just so you know. Is that as bright as it gets? What about putting it on the whiteboard? No, we'll look at it during the break. I'll do something else, and then so let's hold on it for now. Yeah, I don't think it's clear enough for people to see. I think we'll take a break. I don't want to mess with it right now. Just keep going. Yeah. So get what you need, but then let's please sit down and continue. We'll take a break in a little bit. Let's not talk, please. So again, please get what you need, but let's not make this a break. We will take a break at some point soon, but. I don't know if I can hold on it and do it during the break if it's still. Sure. Yeah. Okay, we'll see during the break. Yeah. Yeah, they can continue their pyrotechnics during the break if needed. So you can just notice what happened for each of you during that time, what that experience was like, noticing how each person had a very different experience through that. And sometimes maybe what we think is easy is not so easy, and sometimes what we think is going to be challenging is quite simple. And noticing that we have ideas about the way things go, and then they go other ways. There should be wind, there shouldn't be wind. It should go faster, it should go slower. I shouldn't have to help anyone. This is my private time. I should help everybody. Whatever might be going on during that time, right? So it's like a little microcosm of the whole practice. And some people are still going. And some people are done. Right? So just before I go on, we'll wait for the few that are left. Yeah, I think Mark is getting them. But oh, they're like, well, I would not want to stop them in that process. So I'll go on. I may repeat a few things if I can't tell how many people are back or not back. But the vision that the spiritual guide has of you is far beyond anything you can currently conceive of in yourself. It both encompasses everything that you know, but it also encompasses all that is currently unknown to you. It's very difficult for us to see beyond our current self. And part of the reason why we work with a guide is that the guide is able to see past this current moments. And therefore they can lead us somewhere, right? This is the idea of a guide. They can see ahead on the path where we cannot see. There's a beautiful metaphor in the Ramayana where Rama, who's God, and his wife Sita, who's like all phenomena, and then Hanuman, who's like us, the student. And they're walking on a very thin path in the forest. And Rama is at the front, God is at the front, and Sita's, his wife, is behind God, and then there's Hanuman. So Hanuman can only see Sita, can only see the current phenomena. And every once in a while, Sita will move her head, right, or will bend down to fix her dress. And then for a moment, Hanuman will see the divine, will see through the veil, will see God. And then Sita stands back up and, he can't see the true teacher, right? but he's being led. So it's a beautiful metaphor of sort of how we are in our life, and that the guide is both phenomena, but also past that for us, is transcendent as well. Welcome back, self-burners. She's still going, yes! The other thing to recognize about the guide, if you are able to relate to the guide completely, you will be relating to a presence that has no self. You'll be relating to a presence that has no individual self there. They are free of that, okay? That's an extraordinary thing. It's something that we are trying to move towards in our own self, to be free of this small self that all these ideas we have. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with them. We have our reasons. They're serving us or they're not serving us. But there's something far vaster than that, okay? So part of the power of being in the presence of a true spiritual guide, and we'll talk about this process, the qualities, is that you are met with a presence that has no presence, you could say. It's very difficult to talk about, a presence that has no self there. And of course, because it's interdependent, it gives you the opportunity to see that that's possible for you as well, that it's possible for you to go beyond the current self. So sometimes when we're relating with our teachers, with our guides, and again, when we're relating with other people in the world, right, to recognize that we're relating to them often only by how far we can see ourselves. And so we say, oh, you're like this or you're like this. But what we're seeing is ourself. And when we learn to work properly with a spiritual teacher, with a guide, and therefore with all other beings, we're learning to see beyond and through that fixed thing that seems to be in front of us. And that's a great opportunity for us. And of course, a great opening, which sometimes can be exhilarating and blissful and sometimes could be quite terrifying if you're attached to the self. So it's interesting to see, just feeling the energy that ran through the room when I said, burn this. Some people were like, hell yeah, I'll go burn this, you know. And some people were like, whoa, wait a minute, you know. I just made a really beautiful thing here, you know. And just to feel what tugs there are to these ideas that we have about ourselves. And the degree to which we are attached to all of these layers of ideas is the degree to which we are not yet free, right? So in this practice, in the Lam Rim, the practice of the Lam Rim is to free you. One, you're already free. We don't realize that we're already free. So another way you could say it is to realize that you are already free. You are already that which all of this, the reason why you came today, whatever you're seeking in your life, you are already that. But sometimes we have to go through a long process to realize what we already are. So the teacher helps us to recognize what we have always been. They're not making us anything other than what we have always been. So you could say that working with the guide helps you to make you yourself in the fullest sense of that word, which is beyond anything that you wrote down on your little card. It includes, but is way beyond that, okay? So I wanted to show you some images, but it's a little bright in here and it's hard to see them. So I might put that towards the end of the class. But I do want to say a few words about the ideas that the images relate to, and then I may say things more fully later. If you take out you have an outline in your packet. So that might be helpful for you. And if you want to write on it, that's fine, whatever you need to do. And I also want to say, thank you for playing along. I recognize that we stepped into these roles. I'm asking you to do things. You're agreeing to write or draw or go burn stuff. And I don't take that as a small thing, okay? We've entered into this conversation together. It's really nice to be able to do that. And to recognize that, again, one of the roles of a student is that you, the teacher, the person in the role of the guide, has no power on their own. No power, right? It's like we have a dog, and you can say to the dog, sit. But if the dog doesn't sit, dog doesn't sit, right? It's like you don't have any power on your own. And sometimes I think, I say I call him the best trained, untrained dog. Because I feel like he's just sort of is like, I'll sit in a minute. And then you go, he sat when I said sat. But he didn't. He really sort of like thought about it and then did what he sort of felt like, or you see that relationship there. And, so sometimes we think, oh, the guide, a misunderstanding is that the guide has some power over me. I'm surrendering myself to some person, or, I'm subjugating myself to some person. And that is a deep and very harmful misunderstanding. You, as the student, actually hold all the power. You empower the guide. And to the degree to which you can empower the guide is the degree to which the guide can help you. Okay? So, we've already sort of entered into just playing with this idea of this relationship today. So if I ask you to take something out and you don't take it out, well, then there we are. Then that's another opportunity for us, right? But, just to say I appreciate you playing in that role and sort of, testing things out. I used to teach yoga, and there would always be, I would ask the students to come into class and to set their mats a certain way. There would always be one student who would have to put their mat the opposite way and like in some corner. And it was just very interesting to see, well, what game is that? Like, what trip is that? That there's sort of this power play, like, yeah, but I have my own way of doing it. And we play all these kinds of games with people all day long, not just with our spiritual guide, but with, with everyone. We're playing these games, like, how much, like, are you higher or lower than me? And like, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way, or I'll do what you ask, but I'll do it in my own way, Or we're constantly playing these games. It doesn't serve us. It does not serve us. Okay, so it's good to become aware. Part of what another thing that working with a teacher does is it helps us become aware of all our games and to drop them because the games are harming us. Okay, and all of these ideas that we have in ourselves, and again, some are very useful for us at the moment, some are not useful, but those all in and of themselves are types of games. All of these labels, all of these plays that we have. Okay. The teacher, the guide, is gameless. They have no strategies. They have no plans. They're not trying to make something happen with you. When you are in the presence of the guide, and of course this means you're recognizing you're in that presence because of this, because it's interdependent, you will feel the presence of a being who has no designs on you. They have no motives for you. And that is an extraordinary field in which to come into consciousness. To be with a being whose presence is beyond this current positioning. Okay? They're not trying to figure out who they are in relationship to you. They don't have a self like that. They're free of a self like that. Okay? So, you'll see on the top of your outline there are these 4 ways that the guide can come. One of them is transcendent, and again we'll talk a bit more about this I think later when we have the images. But the transcendence in the maybe Christian tradition, it's like it's the God that I feel like my family in Kansas talks about when they talk to me about God. It's some God that's like so far beyond, has no relationship to this realm. Somehow, kind of is creator, but is like far beyond. That's one way to think of the transcendent. Another way is that which we can't conceive of at all, or like in Judaism, that you can't even speak the name of, you can't even speak it. There's no way to encompass it by any thought, any word, right? That is a very important way to recognize the guide. That is a form of the guide that guides you in your life, is to recognize that there is something transcendent of you that moves us. It opens us. It gives us potential. Okay? You could say the state of that is maybe something called awe, big wow. That space where you just go. Or maybe sometimes you look at the sky and the complexity of it is so extraordinary, you just go. That thing that takes you out of your current thought, right? Like your thought drops for a moment. That's the transcendent, okay? without the transcendent, without the feeling of the guide as transcendent, you'll never be able to move beyond your current self. You'll always be stuck in conception. So we do need that. We need that perspective, okay? And again, these four are totally interrelated. You cannot separate them, even though I'm talking about them like this. You can't separate them. So the next one is relational. And this is when the guide comes as a person, as someone you can actually relate to. You know, it could be your friend, your mother, your lover, your coworker, your spiritual teacher, any of these roles, but again, to recognize that within that relation is the transcendent. So within that relation is always the transcendent, the possibility for transcendence, okay? Without the relational, without your guide coming as another human being that you can talk to, your relationship to the divine forever remains fantastical. It forever remains outside and far beyond you. And that's a very sad state, actually, to feel like you can't penetrate the divine in some way, okay? So the divine arises in a relational form, so you can have relation to it and recognize that you're not that far from it, actually. And of course, that presents all types of problems, too, because we have such low self-esteem about ourselves. It's very hard to see that in another person. We just project ourselves onto the other person, you know? The next one is the intimate, and sometimes this is called the inner guru or the inner guide. The real form of the inner guide is not some voice inside of you or some image or some sensation. It is when you actually penetrate the transcendent within your own being. And so within your own self, you are able to lose your sense of self. That is really the inner guide, the inner guru, is when you have, through the model of a relational teacher, you can feel, sense the transcendence in the relational teacher, then you are able to start to relate to that, first as a human being, because you're seeing the guide as another human being. So you can start to relate to yourself differently as a human being. And then you can start to penetrate the transcendent within yourself. And when you really penetrate that, you have touched on the inner guide, the true inner guide. And then we might talk about the inner guide, and we will in ways that, like I just said, some type of inner feeling, some gut feeling, some inner inspiration. Those are all ways to talk about the inner guide. But the real inner guru is a space that is beyond any self. It's beyond any concept. And not the idea of seeing it in someone else, but actually having it occur to you. Okay? So again, you can see these are all relational. Without this experience of at least getting in touch with your own inner inspiration, with at least having some feeling of like, what am I really, going towards? What am I really feeling in my life? You will always be seeking stabilization outside of yourself. You'll always be some kind of slave to other people's ideas, to other people's feelings. It's like, you should eat this. I should eat that. You should wear this. Oh, I should wear that. You should not wear that. No, I shouldn't wear that. It's this constant push and pull. So there must be you must develop some strong sense of the inner guide in order to be able to stand in and with of yourself, right? Otherwise, not only are you trying to stabilize yourself on other people, but you'll take other people down because you'll be holding on to them. It's like if I don't know, I'm not a very good swimmer, and I've had experiences where I've been in a pool or in the ocean and someone even just playfully, my friend will jump on me or hold on to me, and I'll totally start to panic because I think then you can't swim, And it's like, well, if you think you're trying to help someone else, but really you're just holding on to them, you'll all sink. So you have to be able to swim on your own. You have to have that sense of being able to take care of yourself deeply, know how to nourish yourself internally, okay? From there, then we can, from that deep internal stabilization, we can go out to the outer guide, where then the outer guide becomes everything, becomes your life, becomes the present moment. That in every moment, you can recognize the divine teachings for you. And then your life becomes very magical. It's like everything is singing to you, everything is is giving you special messages. Everything is miraculous, and in some way, when everything is miraculous, nothing is miraculous, right? So then you've sort of compounded the transcendent and the ordinary, okay? And this is a nice thing to think about. What if your life, in and of itself, what if there was nothing left out? You know, and this is sort of within the vernacular of our culture right now of like, you know, if you have an accident or someone dies, it's like, well, what are you going to learn from that? It's in our Western vernacular to think this way. And that's actually pointing to a very deep teaching about can you take all circumstances of your life as guidance and as exactly as they should be, with trusting that what is rising has a vision for you that's beyond what you can currently see. That would change the way you move through your life. You would be able to relax a little bit, I think. There wouldn't be so much push and pull and planning and, again, trying to position and figure things out. To say, like, you know, trust that the flow is going. But of course, if you're just trusting that the flow is going without any inner guide, it's like, oh, you know, so all of these four have to be sort of working on each other. Without the feeling that the sacrality, the divine is everywhere, we remain locked in some kind of dogma. We remain locked in duality, where there is sacred and there is divine. And that is not free. You are not free when there is a right way and a wrong way, ultimately. For a period of time, you might need to go through your life in the sense of, again, discernment. This is what I need to be doing right now for my path. But there should be some part of your mind that is free from, and this is it, you know, and this is the only way. That will and has literally killed millions and millions of people over history, is this dogma that I know the right way. We must free ourselves of that, and it happens in all kinds of subtle ways. We wouldn't see it if it wasn't moving through us, okay? So starting to relate to your life as the divine guide should soften your sense of dogma within yourself. This part of your mind that's going constantly, this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. Anybody have that mind? At any time during the day, do you go, it shouldn't be like this. It should be like this. That produces your ability to see religious wars in the world. That little moment of there shouldn't be traffic right now, I'm trying to get to the Mahasukha Center, creates a war in Afghanistan, literally. It expands out. So we need to remove this within ourselves, okay? Now this is not to say like, maybe, so it's fine that there's traffic. That's different. You can have feelings about things. It's fine to say, you know, I don't like this, but I don't like this right now is different than it should be different. Can you feel the distinction? Do you hear me? Okay, so it's important to be able to sometimes it's like separating milk and water, but it's important to try to separate that sensation. It's fine to say, you know, I would prefer if there were no traffic, but there is traffic right now. So what will you do with that situation? You are empowered to work in that situation, okay? But the should and shouldn't, the dogma, we really have to be mindful of, and it crops up constantly within our life. And somehow we think it's not hurting us or it's okay, and we always sort of jump to the extreme, but it's like we're poisoning ourselves slowly. It's like putting a drop of arsenic in your water every day or something, you know, and then 40 years later you're like, well, why am I dying of cancer or something like that? Well, it's because these thoughts are moving through your mind, moment to moment to moment, okay? So these four, the transcendent, that which is beyond us, the person who's right across from us, the guide who comes as a human being, the guide within ourselves, and the guide that is our entire life, all phenomena. We want to learn how to work with all of these four and to recognize that we can't separate them, okay? So I'm going to take you in another meditation. If you need to do a 30-second stretch, do. And again, after the meditation, you'll need your packet. If you want, there's a purple envelope in your packet. You could just take that out. You don't need to open it quite yet, but you can just take that out. And you'll want some pens and paper near you. So we're going to do this. This process is going to take about 15 minutes, and then we'll take a short break, okay? Just so you know where we're going, so your mind can kind of relax. So when you're ready, again, please get yourself comfortable. If you're not comfortable in the beginning, you certainly won't get more comfortable. For those of you that have been to the workshop before, I'm going to move into the third image now of the Lamrim meditation. And we'll go briefly through the first two, but this will be the meditation on the third image. And again, for those of you that are here for the first time, we'll slowly build over the 3 years the full path, the full meditation. So we've done 2 images already, and we're on the third image. Okay. So everyone close their eyes. Connect back to that stillness within yourself. Know that you're in a safe place, you're with friends, you're in a supportive environment. Can soften any tension that you picked up. Again, soften the face. If the face got tense, the jaw, the front of the forehead, all that thinking, let it go. And connect yourself again to the simplicity, the lovely simplicity of the rising and the falling of your own abdomen, your own belly. Witnessing it, not changing it. And letting it soften and carry you as if your consciousness was floating on the waves. So your consciousness rises with the rise and falls with the fall. But you're not going asleep, you're becoming ever more conscious, ever more aware as you take this ride on the breath. Any other sounds, any other thoughts that are passing through your mind, you don't need to push them away. You don't need to do anything about them. You can allow them to be part of the rising and falling. So feeling like this simple dance of your abdomen can take over the whole universe. So take yourself now to a place in your being, a place in your life that is a dark place. And we can just simply call this the dark, the darkness. And allow yourself for a moment or two, we won't stay here long, to really connect with that part of yourself that senses its loss, the part of yourself that probably drives the majority of your actions, to try to find some way, to try to figure out how to live, how to be in the world. Again, the feeling that you should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. The mind that needs to make a decision is confused. confused mind is connected to some part of yourself that is lost. And this is actually the most powerful place for us. It is where our path is born. It is not a negative place, but actually a place that provides extraordinary nourishment if we know how to be with it, relate to it in a meaningful way. So really allow yourself here in this moment to open to that sense of despair, fear, frustration, the dark, all that is the dark. Do not deny that it is part of you. And then feel that there is at first just a pinprick that pierces through that darkness of light. A bit of air, a bit of breath. And you can sense it within your own being and feel that you begin to follow it. And as you do, the light grows a bit larger and a bit larger until you find yourself on a path, a lit path that you're following. You don't know if this light is coming from you or from outside of you. You don't know where it came from, how it appeared. It has a quality of mystery to it. And there's a deep sense of relief and gratitude that comes in your heart. And see if you can sense within yourself that this light is not the light of your previous or current status quo thinking and planning. This light is something beyond that. It is other. And as you follow that path, you come to a clearing by a large body of water. You have moved out of the darkness now. And across this large body of water is another world, another land. And on that land there's a great castle. But at the shore of the other body of water, you see your guide. And you feel that the light is emanating from this being. Do not question how it is that you see your guide, just see your guide. And you can sense and see directly that this being is so happy to see you. And that this being is utterly and completely in love with you. And the vision is so striking, so moving to you that everything else falls away. And it is as if the openness that is in your being is drawing your guide towards you. And of course, their love of you is drawing them towards you as well. And they get in a boat and they cross the body of water. And just take this delicious moment to witness them coming closer and closer to you. Feeling this extraordinary presence of this being.
might feel that there's an uncanny sense here that you've known this person forever, and yet here you just saw them for the first time. You might have a sense that they've peeked at you through many different types of beings. Or you may even feel, hear, and recognize that you've seen them in many different beings. But again, here they are for you in this moment, in this form. And as they come onto your shore, they step out of the boat and you greet each other. And then in a way that's meaningful for both of you, you rest together for a bit of time. There's nothing to say. There's no need for speech. You feel that you can be utterly still and open in front of this being. So for a minute here in silence, we'll just rest with our guide and allow your body, your speech, and your mind to absorb their extraordinary presence of love. What's most important here is that you feel them, that you really feel this presence here with you. There is no affliction in this being. They are 100% with you, for you. So as we come out of this meditation, I'd ask you to, again, keep your eyes closed for the moment. I'd ask you to open your purple envelope, and inside that there will be another card. And I would ask you to, again, take some time and to make an image of your teacher. It could be something you draw, it could be just marks on the paper, it could be words. You can do it as literally or as non-literally as is meaningful for you. It has nothing to do with how well you draw. So again, to make a collage portrait of your guide. So when you're ready, take your time in the transition. And then move forward in your work. And again, if there's another place you'd like to go to in the room, please do. And as you do this, you can trust that your inner guide is working. So because people might need or desire different time frames for this, we're just going to blend this into a break, and I'm going to ask you to stay silent during this first break. You can talk and commune together during the second break. So we'll take a 15-minute space, and you can keep working. You can take a walk outside, obviously many other things that you might do. It would be best if you didn't go make a phone call if you're able, just to maintain the mind of the room and to respect where we want to go together. So we'll gather back and have finished our task close to 3:30, a little bit before 3:30.